So we've got another message, Sammy. Yeah. Basically, a brother. I think it's a brother. But I like him, and it's like usually on Instagram I get these long messages, but recently I've been getting short little questions. Nice, short, sharp and easy. Nice, easy to answer. Basically, the brother, he goes, brother, I wanted to ask you for clarification. Why should we follow the way of the Sahabah, i.e. the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when we can follow the path of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So I think that's a good question. You know, he's saying, look, we were told to follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Shahada is La ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Okay, the Sahaba don't mention the Shahada like that. You know, we told follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and now you're like follow the companions. Where did this come from? Is it enough for me to follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? In reality, no. You can't just follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and not follow the Sahaba. Just see why? It's impossible, because the path of the Prophet and the path of the Sahaba is a path that is one path. It's all exactly the same. And the proof of this is, look what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Baqarah. Allah said, فَإِنْ آمَنُوا بِمِثْلِ مَا آمَنْتُمْ بِهِ فَقَدْ اهْتَدَوْا. Allah said, if they believe the way that you, Muhammad, and those who are with you believe, then they'll be guided. Pay attention. Allah didn't say, if they believe the way you believe, Muhammad, then they'll be guided. Allah said, if they believe the way you believe, Muhammad, and those who are with you, then they will be guided. If Allah said, فَإِنْ آمَنُوا بِمِثْلِ مَا آمَنْتَ, then it would mean it's just the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But Allah said, آمَنْتُمْ, which means you and those who are with you, the way you believe and the way those who are with you believe. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala connected salvation and connected guidance to the Prophet's belief and the belief of the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum ajma'in, to show you that the two are the same. They cannot be separated, number one. Number two, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or rather another ayah in the Quran where Allah said, وَمَن يُشَاقِقِ الرَّسُولَ مِن بَعْدِ مَا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الْهُدَى. Anyone who opposes the path of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam after guidance becomes clear, وَيَتَّبِعْ غَيْرَ سَبِيلِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and then they follow a path other than the path of the believers, what will happen to them? They'll be taken into the hellfire. So pay attention. Why are they going to go to the hellfire? Because number one, they're opposing the path of the Prophet and opposing the path of the believers. When this ayah came down, who are the only believers on the face of the planet at that time? The companions, the Sahabah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Which means that this ayah, before it hits anyone else, is talking about Sahaba. So in other words, وَمَن يُشَاقِقِ الرَّسُولَ مِن بَعْدِ مَا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الْهُدَى. Whoever opposes the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam after guidance becomes clear, وَيَتَّبِعْ غَيْرَ سَبِيلِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and they follow a path other than the path of the believers, i.e. a path other than the path of the companions, they will be left to what they turn to, وَنُصْلِهِ جَهَنَّمَ وَسَاءَتْ مَصِيرًا, and then they'll be dragged into the hellfire. So going to the hellfire is when you oppose the Prophet and his companions' path. We've got many other evidences. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, look what he said. He said, if you live after me, فَسَيَرَ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا, you will see a lot of dispute and argumentation and difference of opinion, right? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned the problem, which is differences. Then he mentioned the solution. He said, فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِسُنَّتِي, and upon you is my sunnah. وَسُنَّةِ الْخُلَفَاءِ الرَّاشِدِينَ الْمَهْدِيِّينَ, and the sunnah of my four rightly guided khulafa. What the rightly guided khulafa, who are the four? Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, hold on to my sunnah and the sunnah of these men. Then look what he said after. He said, عَدُّ عَلَيْهَا بِالنَّوَاجِذِ. He said, hold on to it with your molar teeth. Pay attention. How many sunnahs did the Prophet mention? He mentioned two, right? فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِسُنَّتِي, my sunnah, وَسُنَّةِ الْخُلَفَاءِ الرَّاشِدِينَ الْمَهْدِيِّينَ, and the sunnah of my rightly guided khulafa. So in your mind, you think these are two sunnahs. Sunnah means path, linguistically, by the way, yeah? So you think these are two different paths, two different sunnahs that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is talking about. If they were two different sunnahs, then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would have said, عَدُّ عَلَيْهِمَا, hold on to both of them with your molar teeth. But he didn't say hold on to them. He said hold on to it. He said addu alayha. The ha here is the singular pronoun. To show you that both of these sunnahs are actually one sunnah. It's one path. You cannot access the Prophet's path and not be on the path of the Sahaba. They are both exactly the same. They intertwine, they interlock, they are the same thing in essence. Because the Prophet's companions were upon what the Prophet taught them, and their companions were following what the Prophet ﷺ taught them. Does that make sense? So it was one path. And the fact that the Prophet ﷺ used a singular pronoun shows you it's one thing. And of course, another evidence, the Prophet ﷺ said, and this hadith is famous, we all know it. سَتَفْتَرِقُ أُمَّتِي عَلَى 73 فِرْقَةٍ. My ummah will divide into 73 sects. The Prophet ﷺ said, all of them will go into the hellfire except for one. So 72 of the sects of Islam will go into the hellfire. The Sahaba, being the intelligent ones, they asked, Man hiya ya Rasulullah? Who is the one sect that will make it to paradise? Who's the one sect that will make it to Jannah? The Prophet ﷺ said, Man kana ala mithli ma ana alayya. Whoever is upon that which I'm upon, which is what the Prophet sunnah, wa ashabi, and what my companions are upon. So the Prophet ﷺ is teaching us what? That you will be guided, you will be taken to paradise and avoid hellfire and avoid the other 72 sects that are misguided. By what? By being upon what the Prophet's upon and being upon what the companions are upon. Because the companions of the Prophet ﷺ are on the same thing. So there are many other evidences, but I think this is enough inshallah ta'ala to mention. And also to mention that Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali rahimahullah ta'ala, when he explains that hadith, فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِسُنَّتِي وَسُنَّةِ الْخُلَفَاءِ الرَّاشِدِينَ الْمَهْدِيِّينَ, what about, the Prophet's sunnah and the sunnah of his right-legged khulafa. He mentions in there that according to the Salaf, Imam al-Awza'i, Imam Hassan al-Basri and the likes of them, the term sunnah, and Salaf for the early generations, the ones who were taught to follow, the term sunnah meant to them the Prophet's path and the Sahaba's path. They never differentiated between the two. It was always understood. It's now that when you hear the word sunnah, you don't think of the Sahaba straight away. But like traditionally speaking, scholars would always, when they would say sunnah, sunnah would always be the Prophet's path and the Sahaba's path. And I will end by saying this inshallah ta'ala. The same way you have to follow the Sahaba in getting the wording of the hadith. Because can you ever find a hadith without a companion in it? Because who's the one who told you the wording? The companion, you see. Imam Bukhari narrated from so and so forth, narrated from so and so forth, narrated from so and so, narrated from so and so. What? عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه, عن عائشة رضي الله عنها, عن ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما, عن أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه. Always a companion is mentioned, and then the companion will say سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Okay, they'll say I heard from the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. The Sahabi will always be the one who's telling you what the Prophet said. In fact, if there is a chain in which the companion is missing, we call this chain mursal. It's weak. And it can't be taken as authentic because we don't know who you got this hadith from. The companion is, you weren't alive when the Prophet ﷺ was there, only the companion was. So if you don't mention the companion in the chain, no one will accept the hadith. So the same way you trust and you rely upon the companions for the wording of the hadith, the same way trust and rely upon them on the understanding and implementation of the hadith. The same way you cannot get the wording of the hadith without them, you cannot get the intent and the understanding of the hadith and the ayah of the Quran without them. The same way the Sahabi explains the hadith, they explain the Quran as well. So it's impossible. It's impossible. It's like the hadith is what? Is the roof, and the Sahabi is the ladder. For you to say, I want to get straight to the Prophet's sunnah, it's like you're trying to get to the roof without a ladder. Does that make sense? So it's impossible. And like I said, the Prophet ﷺ said, this is the dividing line between all the other sects. Many sects claim to be Ahlul Sunnah, Ahlul Sunnah, Ahlul Sunnah. They say, okay, but where they go wrong is the Sahaba. True Ahlul Sunnah is the ones who follow the Sahaba. Because who else knew the Prophet ﷺ in the way that he's supposed to be understood? Who were there when the ayat were coming down? Who were first person witnesses to the revelation? Of course it was them. And that's why following the Prophet is following the Sahaba, and following the Sahaba is following the Prophet. The leaving off of either one of them is destruction and a path to the hellfire. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Brothers and sisters, I need your attention for just 1 minute. Our brothers around the world, they need help. Some of them, if they don't get food and water to drink, they are going to die. And then there's others, like those who are back home, who live on the same streets as us. And if they don't get help in terms of spiritual help, they might lose their faith. Now, both those whose lives are in danger and whose faith are in danger, they both need to be helped. But I want to explain to you the repercussions of not helping both of them. You see, if you don't help those who are suffering when it comes to starvation, at least when they will die Muslims. And all that they will leave, or all that they will lose at the end, is their life of this world. But if you don't help those brothers and sisters who are struggling in terms of their faith, if they die, then they might actually lose their afterlife and potentially be entered into the hellfire for a period of time, if not eternity. For that reason, it's important that we don't neglect these brothers. For that reason, we started up a project called Umrah with the Mandem, where we take brothers and sisters from around the world, specifically the UK, specifically London, and we take them with us. And we set up a program that facilitates for them to change. We also provide them support for when they return. And we always select a handful of brothers who can't afford it themselves. And this time, we have taken on board more people without paying anything than we ever have before. And we are in urgent need of their costs being covered. So if you would like to help facilitate towards someone's life changing, then please go to the link below, inshallah ta'ala, and donate generously. Remember, if they change their life, then you're actually helping them, inshallah ta'ala, be a part of saving their afterlife. And in terms of reward, then any good that they do from this point onwards, if they change because of your donation and you're sincere, then you're going to get all that reward as well. So on the Day of Judgment, you get this mountain of good deeds, prayers, charity, fasts, all this stuff that you've never done. But why did it come your way? Because you facilitated with Allah's permission for someone to make change. And then when he changed, he or she did all of these things. And now that reward is all on your scales on a Day of Judgment. So please, brothers and sisters, be as generous as you can. Go to the link below, donate like crazy. Barakallahu feek. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.